that because his time was so precious and so much occupied, that what he would do, the people that he didn't know, he would give them an appointment at an early hour, 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning, to have breakfast with him. And at his breakfast table there were about 8 or 10 or 15 people that while he was having his breakfast, he would give 2 minutes to each person or something like that, and then in that breakfast time, he would sort them out and know who is what, you know, and whether he wanted to keep the relationship on after that or not, you know. So when he came down out of the lift, these people waiting there, immediately looking at me and I looking at him, there was a sort of a mutual understanding or mutual magnetic that went through us. And he turned around and to these people that waiting for him, he said, I'm afraid you'll have to wait. And he took only me and my wife to the dining room to have breakfast with him. And in that half an hour, we discussed the house, the philosophy, the politics, the history, and architecture. In that half an hour.
In 30 minutes.
In that 30 minutes. And it's not only that 30 minutes, it is discussing these things. It was, to me, it seemed like fencing, that the French fencing, you know. He used to try to prick me, and then I was trying to prick him, because I was judging him this normal standard, the yardstick that you judge all the other people, you know. And I suppose he was doing the same thing. For instance, he asked me what was my training, you know, what was my job, you know, what was my training. I said, I'm a civil engineer. He said, well, you are already spoiled. You are already ruined by having formal training. The next thing he asked me, what was my job, what was my business? You know, I said, I'm a developer. He said, oh, well, that's the end of it. I said, Mr. Wright, development is only my bread and butter. And then he asked me what sort of house I wanted. I left him free to do what he likes. No price was mentioned. No condition was laid, except that I wanted my bedroom to be an island within the island.
That was your one and only condition,
That
but
was the
he had the freedom
to do what he likes, you see.
And it's interesting, at dinner, just like you said, you treated him as you would treat any other man. You didn't think of him as any better of a man than yourself, and therefore you use this example of fencing with each other, because he respected you after that.
I think so.
I believe so.
Yes, I think that, for instance, in that interview, he asked myself and my wife and myself, you know, 3 or 4 times to go and visit them at Taliesin, you see. And I thought that he was asking us to go to Taliesin to impress me what he has there, you see. I took him that like all the other architects, you know, saying how wealthy I am and how well off I am and what I have, you know. But later on, only much later, I realized that he enjoyed my company as much as he enjoyed his. Actually, I enjoyed his company more than he enjoyed mine. And the next thing he said, in that half an hour, he asked me to send the contour of the site, you see, for him, which I did. The place was surveyed. I sent the contour survey of the site. And as a matter of fact, I was surprised. I said, well, without seeing the island, can you sort of design it without seeing it? He said, well, he said the contour of the side is enough for me. He had never seen the island before he designed it. I sent the contour, every rock and every tree was marked, and the best view. And it was sent to Mr. Wright. And
So, excuse me 1 minute. So with that volume that I gave you that
Yeah.
you were able to share with me today, I had no idea that your handwriting was in that preliminary drawing,
That's
that
right.
actual first drawing that was ever made, and it was actually laid on top of, or
Exactly.
overlaid on top of the topography map that you sent.
Exactly, you see.
And you labeled every tree.
Every tree, every rock was marked on the contour and photographed, and the photograph was sent to him. And those things were numbered, and so the photographs were numbered, so that you could coordinate it, what is what and what is where, you see.
Mhm.
And while I was staying at Taliesin West, when he said, come, if we are ready, if you are, come, I went there, the drawings were not finished.
The preliminary drawings, the renderings, the...
But what it has nothing to do with rendering,
No.
even on the contour line,
Oh.
the triangles were there, and there were rough pencil marks, rough things that were done there on that contour line, you see. And that was the only thing that was ready. But his draftman, he was busy in the studio trying to do the plan, the presentation plan. And my sensation was that as if you were looking a child being conceived, a child being born, and a child growing up. Because that's the stages that this plan went in. I don't know, it took about 7 or 8 days or something like that, going various stages, being born, being grown, and getting mature, And to begin with, he gave me 2 or 3 privileges that I heard later on that he hadn't offered it to anybody. Though he was so much against smoking, he allowed me to smoke in Taliesin. The second thing was that I could go into his studio anytime I wanted to.
That was very private to him.
That's right. I used to go to the studio, and while the plan was developing, I saw shortcomings, I saw mistakes, I saw things that were not practical, and I used to make a remark to the draftsman, and when he would say, don't say anything to Mr. Wright, because eventually he came around to it and he could see it himself and correct it, and that's what he did. Without my mentioning anything, that's what he did. He saw it eventually. But still, even in the final drawing that we have now, there is one mistake that's not corrected.
It was never corrected.
It was never corrected.
Or caught by...
I never said anything to him. And the third privilege he gave me, he allowed me to take the drawings as they were into my room, to my bedroom, and have it at night and study it and look at it. And that's what I used to do, take the drawing from the studio and my bedroom and look at it. And it was finally finished.
How many days was that process?
I would say it took about 7 or 8 days.
7 or 8 days.
Yeah,
Interesting.
at least 7 or 8 days, constant work.
So you saw it from birth, and it evolved all the way to
I saw
the...
it, yes, I saw it.
Amazing. While you were on site.
While I was in Taliesin West,
Interesting.
when he said, we are ready when you are, I expected to go there and find the final drawings, you see. And most probably what it is just, that he said, we are ready when you are, perhaps it will take me a couple or something, a week or 10 days to get there.
He didn't expect you to jump on a train and get there the next day.
No, he didn't expect that, you see. So when I got there, nothing was, well, as I said, the house was conceived and was being born, but it was a house that couldn't walk. It was a house that couldn't talk. It was just like a child, a lump of flesh, there.
In the infant stage.
And it wasn't anything that you could understand. And while, as I said, when I was there, I saw that the house being grown and getting mature, and in the final stages, it was so beautiful that I used to take it with me to my bedroom every night in Taliesin West, and just look at it and study it and admire it, you see. And when it was finished, I left Taliesin West, came back to New York. And even in my house on Long Island, I used to have it in my bedroom, right in front of my bed. So when I woke up in the morning, I could look at it. And of course, change the plans from week to week, from night to night, I change the plan so that I can look at something different. To me, that house is like Beethoven's Fifth or Ninth Symphony. It's solidified. It's perfection. There is not a single thing that can change. I mean, there isn't a single thing that I can sing, I can change that and improve it. So, it's a beautiful thing, it's something out of this world, And while they were doing the drawings, Mr. Wright had a lot of difficulty about the stairs that led from the living room balcony into the dining room terrace. You see, he was changing that so often. And he turned around and said, this thing has got to get together just like the two hands, the two fingers that get together, they've got to fit like that. And eventually got it right.
But that was the one thing that was really eating at
That was
him.
really something that worked on, that quite changed it so many times, you see. And now, the plans that are in the books that you have brought, that's not the final plan. The plans that I have, those are the final ones. It's quite totally different from, not I wouldn't say totally, quite different from what you have there. There are many things there. For instance, in that plan, there is no fireplace in the library. In my plan, there is fireplace in the library. And there are quite a number of things that are different from the plans that I have and the ones that are printed in the book that you brought along. Well, when I took the drawing home, and studied it from the living room, from the entrance to the fireplace, was 110 feet long.
Football field.
It was lovely, it was gracious, I didn't object to that. But the cost, it seems it was out of my means at the time, you see. And Mr. Wright was so keen on building that, he asked me, our family was related to the Shah. And my father was very close to the Shah, though he didn't know it, But jokingly or seriously, he turned around and said, can you borrow it from the Shah? He didn't know my father was connected or related to the Shah, He said, can you borrow it from the Shah? I said, no, I'm afraid not. And he turned around and said, can you steal it?
He was not only keen on building this house, it was an obsession also.
Oh yes,
him.
definitely, sir, definitely, sir.
From what his other people said on the meeting when I went to Taliesin.
Oh yes, sir. Well, it was, you see, one day, I went to see him with my wife in the morning, you know, and we always sat down. It wasn't architecture or it wasn't the house. We talked just generally and socially, various things and all that. Then we wanted to go. He was so sure of himself, you know. He said, no, you don't have to go, you can stay. So I turned around and said to Mr. Wright, well, we have got to do some shopping. So he said he wanted to come and see the island, you know. And I said, well, certainly, you know, we can take you there whenever you are ready. He had an appointment with Kaufman, with Edgar Kaufman for lunch. He had invited Edgar Kaufman for lunch. And then at the same time in the afternoon, he was flying to North Carolina or South Carolina for a lecture. And so one of his disciples, Henkin, I remember his name, he asked Henkin to telephone Kaufman and ask him if it was possible for him to come and have lunch half an hour earlier, so that he'll have more time in the afternoon to come and see the island. And so we made the appointment was changed for half an hour earlier, and he told me what time he'll be ready. We'll go and pick him up and take him to the island. So at the appointed time, I was at Hotel Plaza. He was not out of the dining room. I went into a dining room, joined Mr. Wright and Mr. Kaufman. They were having their dessert. And then I finished their dessert, and we were walking out of the dining room through the hall to go to the car. He turned around to Edgar Kaufman and told him from now on, falling water is finished. From now on, it will be Chahroudi's house.
In design.
In design, yeah. Well, I mean, the falling water, of course, that by until that time, you know, was the house, you know, was the famous one.
Almost even till today.
Oh, no, is it really? Yes,
It's
yes.
very much recognized.
Yeah,
I think the popularity is incredible. Nothing has really matched it as dynamic as until this home is built.
That's
because
right.
those words.
Well, this was a word right to Kaufman. It was a falling water right to Kaufman's father, you know. He turned around. That's why he was outspoken, you know.
Interesting.
That's
How did Kaufman react?
Nothing at all, nothing. He was a very sensible man. He's a very understanding. He understands most probably Frankfurt architecture better than many people. He was quite understanding, and we just took it as for granted.
Well, it's interesting here in this update that Mr. Storer writes. He has a small write-up about Kaufman. Here he says, Wright told Edgar Kaufman that he had finally found a site more beautiful than Bear Run. Kaufman so told the story. Continues, then tried to buy the island, but Chahroudi would not sell. Is there any truth to that?
No. He didn't. I mean, he didn't.
To continue, it says, if this house and its size is so beautiful, then the house should be built.
Yeah.
Or
He
so.
didn't contact me directly, you know. I mean, but I had no idea. I mean, no matter how much amount of money he would have offered me,
It
I
wasn't.
wouldn't have sold it.
Well, the interesting thing here, because I remember in the interview from Mr. Storer, I told him, if this house and its site is so beautiful, then the house should be built. And then I said, or so thinks Carlos Mejia. And it was so funny when he told me about this house
Yes.
and the history, or a brief history of it, because I've gotten bits and pieces from Dodd, bits and pieces from everybody, but never anybody firsthand, such as yourself.
A piece of art can tell you about Persian poetry and the Persian poets. The one which is very well known in the West is Omar Khayyam, he was outstanding. But the one that are not known in the West are Hafiz, Saadi, just to name two of them.
I've heard of Sadi.
Have you?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, if you read Hafiz or Saadi's poetry, if you try to change one word to improve it, it's absolutely impossible. There is nothing, it's perfection.
You'll destroy it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's a perfection. There is nothing that you can change and improve it.
And this is what this design
And this
on
is-
Petra is.
And that's what the design is on the house that Mr. Wright designed, you know. You cannot improve it because all the changes and all the improvements were made during that 7 or 8 days that I was staying with him, that those changes were made by me, you see. Because there were so many different ways of doing things. For instance, I can show you a column which is between the dining room and the living room. In this book that you brought me is a crude state of it. In the drawing that I have, that has been changed to perfection, you see. So if you want to change that, he had done the change already, you see.
Amazing. But there's still that one piece that was never corrected.
Well, there is
But
one
it's
mistake.
insignificant.
This is one mistake
Mistake.
that is not corrected because it's not practical. And privately I shall show it to you, but I would like to put it on the record, you see. But I'm sure that if it came to working drawing, he would have realized that again himself and corrected it. You see, he would have realized that and corrected it. So, with the design that he has had, if you want to change anything, you destroy it. When I realized I can't build that at that time, I wanted a smaller house on the same site and on the same place, you see. And at this time I was staying with him in Taliesin, Wisconsin, and I made a suggestion how to make it smaller. And his answer was that if you do that, you'll kill the house.
Exactly that.
Exactly that, and he was right.
You would kill the house.
He would kill the house, and he was right.
As if it was alive from the
Oh,
minute
yes,
it was
definitely.
born.
Yeah, yeah. You see, the God created human being, an artist creates a work of art. You see? And if you want to change that, you do kill it. And what I suggested, I was thinking of the cost point of view in order to make it smaller.
Economics.
And he turned around and said, if you do that, you kill the house, and he was right.